Logically, why is IVF okay, but stem cell research and abortion isn't to certain right-wing groups? Back when IVF was brand new, people were very put off by the idea and many right-wingers were making a moral panic over it. Nowadays, however, it's mostly considered acceptable, because the right wing considers anything that boosts fertility rates to be good, especially if it is used primarily by their own favored demographic. Hypothetically, IVF can be done without excess embryos. It's more expensive, but the move is to freeze harvested eggs, then only take the ones out you're going to use. Stem cell research, on the other hand, necessitates aborted tissue. However, there ought to be no shortage of spare tissue. It can be harvested from non-viable ectopic pregnancies, more akin to an organ donation of someone terminally ill. It really should mostly be a non-issue. And the stem cell lines they've been using have been the same ones for decades now. They choose what they are upset about based on Fox News telling them what to be upset about. Right-wingers generally have no clue about anything related to science. If you quizzed the average right-winger on this question, they'd have no clue that embryos are discarded in IVF. And for those that do know it, they'll just brush it off as a non-issue, because right-wingers also have no regard for logical consistency or intellectual honesty or integrity. Edited to add, since I'm not sure everyone know why they'd brush it off. The reason they would brush it off as a non-issue even when it's revealed to them that embryos are discarded in IVF is because being pro-life has always really been about punishing women for having sex, not about caring about the unborn or valuing life in any capacity. They think that Planned Parenthood is dumping a semi-full of aborted fetuses at labs and it must be stopped. The real answer is there's no real difference, but they have to support IVF because so many of their pro-life base are willing to set aside their beliefs in order to become parents. I guarantee you 80 of the couples at the IVF clinics in Alabama would call themselves pro-life and rejoiced at the Dobbs decision, never imagining that it would affect them. IVF is about trying to have babies and create life. Stem cell research and abortion is not. IVF is sorta okay in some methods, but not okay in almost all others. In some methods, you implant all embryos, in others, you only implant some. Those embryos that are left over are aborted. You can do IVF morally, you can't abort morally. Stem cell research is viewed as unethical in the same way killing a healthy patient and donating all his organs is unethical no matter how many people his donated organs save. The Catholic Church, however, has no wiggle room and says that IVF isn't okay. The Catholics who think it's okay probably just don't know what the church stance is. A lot of them aren't okay with IVF. See Alabama. There isn't any logic to their position, it's all emotion. I don't think they really understand what IVF is outside of it helping people have babies. Mike Pence used it to have a child and he's as hardcore a Christian nut you are going to get. They claim life happens at conception, but when doing IVF many eggs are fertilized for the best results, meaning some of that life is eventually not used and disposed of. It's like anything though, the rules are different when it suits them. Because IVF is a way for religious folks with poor fertility to fulfill God's command to be fruitful and multiply, but stem cell research and abortion is against God's will. Which is fucking hilarious. Because if you can't have children without IVF and are making arguments of religious morality, IMO, that is God telling you that either 1, it is not in His will that you have children, or 2, it is His will that you adopt one of the many children in need of a family. But WTF do I know? I'm just some stupid immoral agnostic atheist. A lot of the Christian nationalists don't make any distinction between any of those. Banning IVF was absolutely part of the plan, as is banning contraceptives. For the general public that are pro-life, I don't think they've actually given any thought about what all these policies they support actually mean. I'm probably one of the few people that is upset that Alabama legalized IVF but is extremely pro-choice. This is what they voted for. This is what they wanted. We aren't going to see change if they just keep carving out narrow exceptions. The people most affected by an IVF ban aren't the same ones most affected by an abortion ban. So while I acknowledge an IVF ban will severely hurt a lot of people, carving out a limited exception is going to lead to much more suffering. Maybe if people are forced to experience the consequences of a pro-life state, they'll start to realize how archaic that actually is. Short version, IVF is a life-creating method, albeit some people are against it. But even in right-wing circles they are a vast and overwhelming minority, like the people wanting to ban contraception for abortion because they see it as life-ending without reasonable fault on the member being killed. For stem cells because there was concern that the stem cells were deriving from the aforementioned act above. If stem cells are being derived from blood samples, fat cells, skin cells, umbilical cords, they don't give a shit. Aren't they pushing to ban IVF now too? Or am I confused? because their actual goal is to punish and control women and women's reproductive systems. Turns out the IVF is something that they can control and that only rich white upper-class women can afford their own wives, basically, so that's why. Honestly, weird question, weird timing. Feels like propaganda banking on people not being informed that Republicans are currently literally trying to ban IVF el Mao. Logically, it does not add up, and there's no way to make it add up. The reasons are political and emotional, not logical. Because 99.9% of their opinions are not based in science.